Good evening and welcome to Hack the Classroom. Please join me in welcoming our host, Sonia De La Fosse.
Hey, everybody! Look at this. This is amazing. Oh my gosh, you guys. This is, for those of you online, hopefully you can see that this auditorium is filled with hundreds of excited teachers, administrators, and a variety of other people from all over here to hear our inspirational stories that we have. Now, normally, if this is our fifth Hack the Classroom, and if you've watched us before, you're used to Anthony standing here and emceeing, but unfortunately, he couldn't be with us in person, so I'm bringing him in from Redmond via video. Anthony.
Hi, and welcome to Hack the Classroom. I'm Anthony from Microsoft, and I'm so excited to have you all join us here today. We're joining you from the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, and it's ISTE Week. And ISTE is a phenomenal opportunity to get inspired by incredible educators from the U.S. and beyond, and they're sharing their impact in their classrooms. Now, today's session will all be about expanding personalized learning experiences for students to enable them to expand and share their own voice. This is incredibly important, and technology can be a great vehicle to do that. You're going to get an opportunity to learn from some amazing educators, as well as get access to resources, which will be on the links below, to help you make those things real in your classroom. So thanks very much for joining us, and please join me in welcoming Sonia De La Fosse. Sonia, what's up?
Thanks, Anthony. Oh my gosh, we have a great lineup for you. But before we get started, I just have some business to get through for our folks watching online. So those of you watching online through our player, you probably saw two chat rooms pop up. Our first chat room is called the Ask a Question chat room. And that is so that you can ask our speakers a question. And I have Tammy standing behind the scenes back there. She's going to be looking through all those questions coming in from you viewers online. And when our speakers are done, I'll have a question to you to ask each of them, but that comes from you watching online. Our second chat room is for you to talk to each other, but it's also filled with dozens of Microsoft folks who work on all of our tools and all of our products, so that if you have a specific question about Forms or Sway or you name it, you can ask and we will respond right away. Secondly, for those of you watching online, be sure to go to our Resources tab, where we have filled it with courses, resources, and more that are completely tied to what you're going to hear today. And those of you in the audience, you might want to get your phones out if you like your badges on the Microsoft Educator community. And those of you online, for joining us today, if you redeem this promo code, HTC June 18 on the Educator community, you will earn your Hack the Classroom 2018 badge. So, are we ready? Awesome. And I don't know if you guys heard this. I think you did. But just a couple of weeks ago, we brought Flipgrid into our Microsoft family. And we know Flipgrid is an amazing tool that really allows each student's voice to be heard. And so what we thought was this is a great opportunity to give you a sample of what Flipgrid is like from a teaching and learning perspective. So we've set up a Flipgrid. So if you're in the audience, go ahead and later on, probably not right now, that would be a little odd, feel free to visit flipgrid.com/HTC June 18. There's a password on the grid, June 2018, and I have two questions there for you. The first question asks, how are you empowering your students to share their voice today? And the second question is for after the broadcast, after you've heard these incredible stories you're going to hear today, what is something new that you're going to try out when you get back in front of your kids? And I can't wait to hear from you. Yeah. Okay. You guys ready for our speakers? Okay. Our first speaker today comes from the United Kingdom. He teaches 16 through 18-year-olds at the City of Westminster College in London. And he is a passionate advocate of teaching and learning through assessment and augmented through accessible use of technology. So I would like to welcome to the stage the fantastic Issam Babakan. Issam?
Hi, everyone. Hello. This is a story about my journey and the use of technology to empower my learners, helping to foster an inclusive environment where equality and diversity is promoted and celebrated, where everyone's voice is heard, even if you can't speak. This is a story about real impact and about the transformative power of technology to improve lives. My story with Student Voice more or less starts when I first applied for the MIE Expert Program in June 2017. Once accepted onto the program, I was then invited to the E2 Regional Conference at the Paddington offices, literally 5 minutes away from my college. And Paddington is probably one of the most culturally diverse areas in the whole of Europe. It was there Microsoft Teams had invited software engineers that have worked on Microsoft Teams to speak to fellow educators about Microsoft Teams and solicit feedback. I was impressed with Microsoft Teams, and I could see a lot of potential, especially in a professional context. But at the back of my mind, I couldn't really see a reason why I should introduce yet another tool in my teaching and learning toolkit. And I couldn't really see the benefits of it in a classroom environment. Embarrassingly so, at that point, I couldn't connect the dots. As it happened, I teach a class with a learner that has a hearing impairment called Kabir. And he is accompanied in class with a sign language interpreter. And unfortunately, I'm not well versed in British Sign Language to communicate with him directly, and I've always had to rely on the interpreter. And as far as I was aware, Kabir had really never communicated with the rest of his classmates. So I go back to college, my lovely college, City of Westminster College, and I reflect on the E2 Regional Conference, and I contemplate. And then I had a eureka moment. I finally managed to connect the dots. Microsoft Teams could be the solution I use to break down the barriers in communicating with Kabir. So excited by this idea, I rushed back to class to introduce Microsoft Teams. But before doing so, I established a few ground rules with the learners. And I told them that with great power comes great responsibility, something you've probably heard of before. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And I also reminded them of the consequences of breaking college policy. Now, with the protocols established, I set out to introduce Teams to the class. The moment I introduced Teams was one of the most memorable teaching moments in my life. As you can imagine, there was an eruption of joy and excitement, and I stood back in fascination watching this, but with my eyes and focus fixated on Kabir. Watching his body language and his face lit up, it was really a special moment, because in that instance, it was for the first time he communicated with his classmates, and his classmates communicated with him. And in that instance, I realized the transformative power of technology to transform and improve lives. And I know this may sound like a cliche, but it really felt like a magical moment. Sometimes as teachers, we're asked about impact. And in that moment that Teams was introduced to the class, there was immediate, real, and tangible impact that would transform the teaching and learning experience of all my learners. I want to share with you a quote that I think captures the moment Teams was introduced. And this is Kabir's classmate. His name is Jasper. He's one of our brilliant digital ambassadors. And I'm going to read this word by word. My classmate with hearing problems messaged me after a day that Teams was introduced. And we were discussing on how we can make improvements on our assignments, which was the first time I ever talked to him. Imagine that. Teams has given me the opportunity to make a friend even without talking in person. Thank you. Yeah, it is incredible. It really was magic. So, what impact has it had on the rest of the class and on teaching and learning? I'm sure as teachers, you would agree, it is quite a challenge to be able to provide one-to-one support for all our learners. Now, students are able to access one-to-one support at the drop of the hat. Even the most passive learners are able to lurk and learn. I've become much more accessible as a teacher, and I'm able to respond to questions and queries at any time, anywhere, and on any device. As teachers, we don't get enough contact time to deliver the content. And with Teams, it's augmented teaching and learning, extending and enhancing learning in and out of the classroom. So, as you would expect, students have started to communicate with each other about work. They share class notes, talk about deadlines, etc. You have to also appreciate I'm not their tutor. I'm just a subject teacher. And I probably know more about their circumstances than their tutors because I use Teams with them. They've also started confiding in me, telling me their issues affecting their deadline submissions, attendance and punctuality. And I'm going to share with you one quote that I think is quite amusing. And these messages get more creative as deadline submissions approach. Yes. So I'll read this one out. I won't be in Isam's lesson today. My key broke and I'm stuck inside my house until someone comes to open the door for me. And I've got literally hundreds and hundreds of these types of messages. I don't know what I've done. Okay. I can tell you without a doubt, this would not have happened through email. It's a much more natural, real-time way of communicating, and it doesn't carry the official burden and protocols associated with email. It's easy and light. So, where are we with Teams? Believe it or not, I have a teacher called Nora, an A-levels English teacher, and she experimented with Teams with her learners. And then I gave her last week a thank you card saying goodbye to her and thank you for all the work. And on the card, it said Teams Forever. That's how much they liked it. So I thought, you know, I'd put that as the title of the slide. So what are we doing with Teams now? From originally not connecting the dots, we use Teams for a variety of reasons and ways. For example, we have English and maths teams, and we have over 1,000 students in those teams. We have literally dozens of screencasts, video tutorials of teachers going over past exam papers that we host on streams. We've got also teaching and learning teams, and we put all the teachers in this team because previously we didn't have the space and time to collaborate and have that professional dialogue. Now we're able to share resources and share good practice. We also have something really interesting. We've got a Flipgrid called Learner's Voice, and we get students to give feedback to teachers on how they can improve teaching and learning, and that's worked really well. And professional communication collaboration, what do I mean by that? Every so often, I go to other colleges and I get to know some fantastic and inspiring teachers. And what we do, in order to carry on with this communication collaboration, we set teams so we can carry on that dialogue. From September, we'll be creating parent teams, so tutors can have that online ongoing dialogue with parents, because as the research says, if the parents are involved with their child's education, success will go up, and so will punctuality and attendance. So we're going to try this out come September. Thank you. Thank you, very kind. The teacher is the most important learner. So, what takeaways and what advice would I give you? If you haven't done so, I really would recommend everyone in the audience and those watching online to become an MIE expert program. Thank you. I became an MIE expert June 2017, and it's only been 12 months. And it's been an amazing journey. The amount of opportunities that have arisen because of this program is just incredible. And I've also connected to a community full of passionate and inspiring educators that I could seek support and help. Honestly, they all deserve a round of applause. They really do. I also would encourage everyone to experiment, fail, and innovate. And what do I mean by that? Experiment with new ideas. And don't worry about failing, because failure is a part of innovation. Take risks. With failure comes opportunity for growth. And if you're overwhelmed with all of these tools, someone told me, really bizarre question, by the way, how do you eat an elephant? Huh? There you go, one bite at a time. So what I'm trying to say is, if you've got a mammoth task, break it down into small steps. Just experiment, okay? And then finally, just like me, I couldn't originally connect the dots, but by experimenting, you innovate. And as teachers, we need to stay fresh and dynamic and engage our learners. And finally, as it is our duty as educators, it is our duty as educators to listen to the student's voice, even if they can't, don't, or won't speak, because everyone has a voice and everyone deserves to be heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hassan. I am so amazed, and I have to say,
thank you very much. Thank you.
The online chat room was blowing up. The online chat room was blowing up, and you talked a little bit about your next step being getting parents in there.
Absolutely, we're really excited.
And what's one other next step you guys have?
The next step? To broadcast when it comes to exam time. So when students are at home, they can access broadcasts from teachers so they can prepare for the exams. And I'm really confident that the success rates will go up.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. Let's give it one more great round of applause for Sam. Thank you again.
Thank you
awesome, you guys. Oh my goodness. I mean, that was clearly life-changing, not just for Kabir, but for all of his students. And for those of you that don't even know what Teams is, don't even know what it can do, be sure to check out the Educator community and check out our course, Introduction to Teams, and that'll give you a taste of what it is, and so that you can start doing exactly what Assam and thousands of other teachers are doing to give their students a voice. Our next guests come from Northwood Middle School, all the way from Wakarusa, Indiana. By the way, that's like 2 hours away from here. They co-teach a 7th grade humanities block that's 3 hours long. They developed this together, and they've been doing it over the last few years. And the reason they did this was to build really immersive learning experiences for their students. And they've done such an amazing job. I had to make sure that not just Valerie and Steve come, but we have their students here as well. And they're going to talk to you about some really amazing projects they've been doing that allow their students not just to learn, but to shine. So with no further ado, I would like to bring out Valerie and Steve.
Thank you. Every classroom has a story. Stories that have unique plot twists, and they've got different characters and different conflicts that happen. And this is our story about student voice and choice.
We teach a cross-curricular class called 7th grade humanities at Northwood Middle School in Wakarusa, Indiana. Steve is the social studies expert, and I focus on language arts, but together we combine our subject areas so that we can facilitate authentic, real-world learning experiences for our students.
Good. So our class is inquiry-based, that we rely on students to complete interdependent group work, and through this group work, helps them develop a better understanding of the Eastern world, which is my content area.
One of the ways that we engage in class content and break down the walls of our classroom is by using Skype in the classroom. No longer are we restricted by budgets or our rural location because Skype allows our students to travel the world for free. Skype in the classroom is a great way for students to explore the Sustainable Development Goals. Introduced in 2015 by the United Nations, the goals aim to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all. By integrating these goals into our curriculum and scheduling Skype calls with experts on conservation, pollution, and the water crisis, our students have been empowered to actively make change in their community and in the world. We pair our study of the Sustainable Development Goals with a Skype collaboration project. Students chose a goal that they were most passionate about and then were put into small groups. In the small groups, they were given the task of conveying the information about that goal to a primary aged audience. The students did research and they created a lesson plan as well as a storybook that they wrote in PowerPoint. We took our lessons and our stories to our local kindergarten classroom and tried them out in front of a real audience. After receiving feedback from our audience and making some changes, our students were ready to open up the Skype collaboration project on the Microsoft Educator community. Through this collaboration, our students became teachers. We taught classrooms around the world of primary age students about the Sustainable Development Goals. Collaboration projects like this one open students' hearts and minds. They help them build compassion for one another. Another notable Skype collaboration or Skype project that we did was during the annual Skype-a-thon. We were reading A Long Walk to Water, and one of our goals is always to tie literature to everything that we're doing. And so we were reading this story about the water crisis by Linda Sue Park, and our students had a lot of questions about what people were doing about the water crisis. So we reached out to Ken Surratt, the CEO and founder of Water is Life. Water is Life is an organization that created and distributes filtration straws to villages throughout the world that don't have access to clean water. While the straws are a temporary solution, the organization also goes in to dig wells for these communities and build some infrastructure. Some of my students were so impacted by this Skype call with Ken that they used the information that he shared with them in a future project. We assign TED Talks to our students, and they chose to do their TED Talk over the water crisis and used all the information Ken had given them so that they could infuse their spoken word piece with as much realistic information as possible. So the students performed it for class, but that wasn't it. They weren't done. So they took their piece, their spoken word assignment that they did, and performed it at a community event. They passed a basket at the very end and collected $600 for Water is Life. So that wasn't it. They came back to their school and orchestrated a completely student-run campaign that raised an additional $250 for Water is Life. That whole campaign started with a single Skype call that inspired our students so much that they wanted to make a difference and make an impact on the world. We love that Skype in the classroom has opened our students' eyes to world problems and has lit the fire for service in our school. Skype in the classroom is easy to use, and it's a great way to integrate technology into the classroom. You can access Skype in the classroom by going to skypeintheclassroom.com or by going to the Microsoft Educator community. There you can find live transformative educational experiences for your students, including virtual field trips to amazing places throughout the world, talks from guest speakers, classroom-to-classroom collaborations, and my favorite, the live collaboration projects. These high-quality learning opportunities are easily available and for free, and they require only one device for whole class engagement. I'm lucky to bring one of my awesome students with me here today. Jenna Markham was in our humanities class. And Jenna has been inspired and empowered by Skype in the Classroom connections and has channeled her passion for making a difference in the world by creating a completely student-run club that based on service at our middle school.
Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm going into 9th grade at Northwood High School this year, and I'm also a former humanities student. In humanities, we use Skype as a way to experience the world from our place in the classroom. We were able to Skype places such as a classroom in Malaysia, a turtle conservation, a sloth sanctuary, the Water is Life organization, Mud Love, and an Olympic rower. It was really fun, and I enjoyed learning about real problems that people around the world face and how I can help. At the beginning of last school year, I approached Mrs. Engelmeyer along with two of my friends, Annika Bennett and Gabby Vincent. We wanted to help and make a difference in the world. We were able to start the Service Club. It consisted of the 3 of us as leaders, along with 17 other 7th graders. Our biggest obstacle with running this club was the fact that we as leaders were in a different grade than the other members. This meant that we only had 1 hour each month to meet with them to discuss things. OneNote made it possible to run this club. Each week, we could put things in for them to do towards our next campaign. Here's an example of how we use OneNote. This was our meeting on October 19th for our first campaign. We would put things in a couple days before their meeting, and we could also add videos. These are just things we put in, and here's a sign-up we had, so they could just type in right there, and we didn't have to send emails or mess with any of that. We were able to complete 3 campaigns this school year. The first was We Scare Hunger. On Halloween, and we split up and went to different towns. Instead of asking for candy, we asked for canned food items. We were able to get 1,252 canned items for the Family Christian Development Center, a local food bank. Our second campaign was We Are Rafikis. Working with the We organization, we sold Rafikis, which are bracelets made by women around the world in poverty, to our friends and family for $10. We then ordered them from We, and part of the money from each bracelet went to help get clean water in Kenya. We were able to raise $2,740. Our final campaign was We Read. We held a book drive at our school and raised 600 books for local Boys and Girls Club. We also promoted reading at our school and had a 30-minute drop everything in read time.
So as Jenna mentioned, the club was completely student-run. I merely facilitated with Steve. They ran everything. They built that OneNote, requested me to build the class OneNote for them so that they could work in the collaboration space all of the time. We had a locked space just for the leaders that they were able to use. So it was just a really neat way for them to integrate technology without us pushing it on them. They chose it. So Jenna mentioned the We Schools program, and that's what they decided to use as kind of the structure of their campaigns. We Schools is an awesome way for you to bring service learning into your classroom. With free programs and resources, educators and students get the tools that they need to make a difference in the world. The user-friendly action plans and the lesson plans that are incorporated go so nicely with the study of the Sustainable Development Goals. And when you can slide that Skype call in, it makes everything more relevant and real. We Schools truly makes doing good doable. To sign your class up for free, go to we.org. So Steve is going to come out, and we didn't stop our study of the Sustainable Development Goals. It continued throughout the whole year, and from my literature lens and his social studies lens, it just grew into this huge unit and module that we are excited to share with you today.
Yeah, thanks, Val. We Schools, just to kind of piggyback off that, it really allows your students to transform kind of the lives for other people. So I would encourage you to check it out. Watching the impact that it had on our kids as they were able to go and actually participate in service learning was really valuable, I think, for us as educators for this year. So as Val and Jenna had gone through, Skype and OneNote are great ways to organize information, to collaborate with people, and then to connect with people who can both inspire and inform you. And just as students need inspiration, teachers also need inspiration. So one of the things that we were trying to do was incorporate more current event information into our classroom and have it have a, connect better to these students, especially with a focus on sustainability. And that's how we came across these sustainable development goals. With the Eastern world, this aligns perfectly with my curriculum because we study all kinds of things from poverty and famine and all of these different things that are addressed in the goals. And by studying these things, it kind of helps redirect our lens and give students a better understanding of what being a global citizen looks like. Also, the idea that the goals, like the purpose of, kind of how they go about completing these goals is through collaboration and compassion. Those are two fundamental core competencies that we want to build in our students each year. So how do we do this? So what we did was we developed a sustainability unit. And this unit, again, was to flip that perspective, to make kids take perspectives of other people around the world. And we wanted them to interact with this in three different ways. So we wanted to use literature, technology, and then some form of engineering, if we could make that work. And before we got all this going, before we went into our inquiry-based work and we broke up into our modules, we wanted kids to have a firsthand account of what do these things look like, what do these goals look like around the world. And fortunately for us, we came across the book, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. So The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, it's a novel about a remarkable young boy named William. He lives in Malawi, and his family is dealing with extreme famine and starvation, and he has this thirst for knowledge. So he has decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a windmill, and that is going to help my family overcome these problems, and it's also going to satisfy this desire I have to continue my education, even though my family can't afford it. The book provides this perspective of what does it feel like to live in famine? What does it feel like to deal with starvation and to not have access to education? And how does that shape development? And throughout this development and throughout looking at these goals and the sustainability, what we also got to see is how difficult is it to build a windmill? I mean, he goes through this stuff. He's trying to build this thing out of spare bike parts. And so we see this opportunity. So how do we get kids to build a windmill? Now, Valerie has told you, I don't teach STEM. I'm not a science guy. I'm a social studies guy. She's a language arts teacher. This is a little overwhelming. We're going to have kids build windmills now in class. Fortunately for us, we've got Microsoft, we've got Hacking STEM, and this is really where things kind of took off for us. These Hacking STEM projects, what they do is they have things that are set up where they've got supply lists and directions and pictures, step-by-step directions, and then people within the Microsoft Educator community that can connect with you to help you solve these problems, as you will probably have as you go through trying to figure this stuff out if you're not working in these fields. So what we did is we divided students into groups of 3, and we had them build the basic windmill construction. So as you can see in these pictures, they're just using kind of household items, straws and things like that, and they're trying to build this windmill. And then after they'd built the windmill, our goal was we kind of challenged them. We said, okay, now you've built the basic, but how do we redesign the blades to make this windmill spin faster and to generate more energy? And this is part of this design loop that's part of this Hacking STEM project that we used. So they went through, they redesigned blades, they tested, they completed research, so we're hitting all those standards that seem so difficult to hit in a project like this. And then at the end, we broke out the hair dryers and we cranked them on and we tested how fast is this going, how many, we just used washers, how many washers can you lift up? And we were able to kind of have some fun with it and have it be a culminating end to what this study was with this book. So after we get done studying sustainable energy, we go, how do we apply this in a much bigger setting? So how do we apply this to the world? So inquiry-based, we asked the students this question. The question was, how do we build a sustainable society that addresses the needs represented by these United Nations global sustainable goals? And for that, we decided we're going to use Minecraft Education Edition. We had a very unique opportunity for students to kind of impart their voice in this project. So we have students broken down into groups of 5, and each student within the group has a different role and a different job, and they all have things that they have to do throughout this module. And we would pose them with a new challenge each week. So, for example, week 1, we said you have to work collaboratively with all of the groups within this classroom. So you're going to build a capital for this city, this sustainable city, where everybody has to have different space and everybody has to work together and divide land and do all of these things. Following that, we have them build out into their own individual spaces. And then in these spaces, we can pose all these different challenges. So now you need to build an alternative energy grid. So how is your city going to be powered? And they had to build and power their grid, and all that can happen in Minecraft. Following that, it's a transportation system that's got to be powered by the energy grid. And then it's just infrastructure, just general infrastructure and the things that have to be there for a society to thrive and to develop. And now, I'm not a Minecraft expert, to be honest with you. I had never played the game before 2 years ago. The kids know when I'm in the world because I break things, because I mix the click up and I don't really know how that, I'm working at it, I'm getting better. But that is kind of where, that's where this was transformative, was the fact that I'm not in charge, the student is in charge, and now all of a sudden I'm facilitating, they're teaching me, they're teaching each other, and now we're doing collaborative problem solving. And that was kind of the great component of this. I brought a student along as well. This is Brock. Brock became one of our Minecraft student leaders. Yeah, Brock. So there's a number of times I went to Brock and said, hey, I'd like to do this for your guys' homework, but I don't know how to do it. Can you tell me if this actually works in Minecraft? And he went out, he figured these things out. Unfortunately, we could incorporate a lot of new things. So what he's going to do is he's going to actually show you, what does Minecraft look like? What is the sustainable society that we built? And he's going to walk you through a couple of these challenges to show you what's the student side of this. So go ahead, Brock.
Hi, my name is Brock Bontrager. I just finished 7th grade, and this is our Minecraft world. So if we go to the middle here, this is where our capital is. This is where all the cities have a collaborative space where they can all build. And while we built our world, we had different challenges throughout the week. So for week 1, our challenge was to build an office building here in the capital. And for week 2, we had to figure out a way to power our city. So what we did, we chose to have solar panels, which are down here, and we had windmills that came together and powered our entire city. For week 3, we had transportation. So if you, on the road, we have rails, and if you put a minecart down, you can sit in the minecart and ride them around, and they act as cars. And if you walk up here, and let's say you want to go to the Capitol, you can come up here, and this is our train station. We put another minecart down and click the button, and this acts as a train system to get to the Capitol and get back. Minecraft allowed me to become a more active leader because I was able to help when we ran into an obstacle. Our teachers didn't know a lot about Minecraft, so we as students needed to figure things out. I have a little Minecraft experience before this class, so I was able to help others when they needed it. Visual concept of Minecraft helped me understand the sustainable goals and what a city needs to be great.
Thank you very much, Brock. So now you've seen how do you get started. So to get started with Minecraft, the Education Edition, you visit education.minecraft.edu. They have all kinds of lessons. They've got starter worlds. They've got all of this stuff already there for you. There's lesson plans. So all of these things are available to you. I was walking around ISTE, and I saw a chemistry demonstration. In Minecraft, now all of a sudden you are breaking down things into elements, and you can see protons, neutrons, and then you can reconstruct these things and actually make new Minecraft items that are not available in the inventory. The bars, you know what I mean, at the bottom of the screen. So, thank you. So, starting with, go ahead. Sorry.
So one of my favorite parts of this was that they were all building in the same world. So we had to come up with some common rules. And Mr. Bowser guided them through adopting a constitution for the world. So they had certain protocol that they had to follow. Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Democracy is hard, okay? Democracy seems great until you have to listen to other people's ideas. And what we had was, we had a group called the Liaisons, and the Liaisons were in charge of all meeting together and then making decisions. And they had all these great ideas, and then they came back and they said, okay, this is what we're doing. And people went, no, we are not doing that. I got to tell you, that building up, the sky deck that they put in, that went through a number of different votes, a series of votes before all of that stuff could be put forth. But that's kind of it. Like, the students were in charge of that. So when you're trying to take the step in fostering a student-driven lesson or a unit or something like that, find resources. Lean on these tools and these resources to help support you as you go. And for us, we have been so beneficial to use the Microsoft Educator community. I mean, finding things like hacking STEM and troubleshooting all of these Minecraft issues that we developed ourselves as we tried to set all of this stuff up became invaluable.
So we challenge you to empower your students through voice and choice activities. Give them a voice so that they can make a change in the world, and they can join our students in serving and making sure that we realize that they're not just their problems, they're our problems. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. That was, come on out, you guys. Let's give them a round of applause. Yeah. So they had lots of questions, but one of my favorite questions came up was for Jenna. And she was, and both Brock, the audience online was wowed by both of you. And so really quickly, where do you see yourself like in your future? You're clearly both of you so poised and well put together. So what are you thinking of for your future?
I want to do whatever I can to keep helping my community and the world. I don't know if it will be with the group or by myself, but I'll just take whatever opportunity I can get to help.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. All right, let's give them one last round of applause. Thank you, guys. So, as we know, like you heard them talk about the student-run service club, and there's empowerment from bringing service learning into the classroom. And so I'm going to ask Anthony to come back here and tell you a little bit more about the WeSchools program. Anthony?
Hi, everyone. It's Anthony, and I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about our partnership with the We organization. Since 2013, Microsoft's been working with We. It's an amazing organization whose mission is to connect people, teachers, and students to provide programs for helping them change the world. We is all about making doing good doable. Now, we've worked hard to globalize the movement by making some of the materials that they have, the programs, the materials that they use to help support teachers in their classroom, available online. Download the OneNote version of the WeSchools Toolkit today. It's a great resource that you can start to leverage some of the programs in your classroom and become a WeSchool. We urge all of our MIEs and our showcase schools to consider joining the movement to inspire their students to make a difference in the world. Thanks for being part of the WeSchools movement.
Thanks. Yeah, I have gotten to be a part of the WeSchools movement. I got to go to We Day this year, which is where all the kids that have done a lot of service learning get to come together and celebrate their accomplishments. I wanted to let you all know, you heard Anthony talk about WeSchools. We have a page on our Educator community where you have a link, and if you scroll down to this piece, you'll see download your copy, so make sure you do that. It's amazing. So, this next speaker is a teacher who transformed her classroom in just a few short months. Her story blew me out of the water when I heard it a few months ago, and I knew we had to bring her here. She's a 4th grade language arts teacher at Garfield Prep Academy in the Southeast District of Columbia. Before we bring her out on stage, though, I thought it'd be really good if we could show you a video of what it's really like with her 4th grade students in DC. Let's roll that clip.
Hi, baby. Good morning. It's our jobs as teachers to find the ways and the tools for personalized learning. We're unique and we're different, so we're not all going to learn the same way. Personalized learning in my classroom looks like everyone doing the same task, but in a different way.
Best Grades is amazing. She's the best reading teacher in the whole world.
Miss Grace she's a great teacher. She'll go above and beyond figuring out what she can do and how she can tailor her instruction for even just one kid.
We really do our best to serve the whole child. I know that teaching is my purpose. It's why I was put on this earth.
There's so many different ways that kids can learn things. There's no one right way.
Absolutely. Finding that way for that kid, and then it's off and running for them, you know? I love Class Notebook. I've often thought, where has this been my whole entire teaching life? I'll put them together.
Advice.
Good job. I love how you... This tool is incredible. It helps my children become more organized. Everyone's engaged. Everyone feels successful. And that's certainly what I want for all of my children. I'm so proud of you. Good job, bud.
The OneNote Class Notebook helped me because if I don't know some words, I just go to Immersive Reader and it can say it for me.
Oh gosh, Immersive Reader has helped the comprehension in my classroom. I see better fluency, see better engagement, and the kids are taking more ownership. People who serve tend to forget about themselves, but it's so important that we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. OneNote has given me the time back that I need for my own balance. And most of all, what I see are students who feel more confident in their own learning.
Good evening. It's an incredible honor to be surrounded by educators to share my story, and I want to thank Microsoft Education for the opportunity. My story starts here at the Garfield Preparatory Academy, located in Southeast Washington, D.C., where I have the privilege of serving some of the smartest, most resilient, amazing, and strongest students around. 98% African American, 100% free and reduced lunch, 13% special education. It started off as a typical school day last November. Got my kids in, ready to settle down to learn. Then it happened. Destruction. The beloved laptop that I had been in a faithful work relationship for the last 6 years crashed. Like any good teacher, I played it cool in front of the class, didn't show the panic on my face, but on the inside, I was totally freaking out, thinking, what am I going to do about a laptop? Where am I going to find a new laptop? How am I going to get a new laptop? Where am I going to get it from? I don't even have time for this kind of inconvenience in my life. On top of all of that, there were a classroom full of fourth graders ready to be taught right then and there without a computer. So like any good teacher, I just had to go old school on them. Yet, I was in denial and without a computer for many weeks. Winter break rolls around. I have a little time to research and explore my options. I discovered a Microsoft Surface Pro. And then I thought, I think this is the laptop that I'd like to start my new work relationship with. While waiting for it to arrive, I discovered the Microsoft Educator community. I was intrigued. What's this? Professional development courses that I can select for myself that interest me, that I can take at my own pace, and that's full of practical information that I could use right then and there. This was different, but I liked it. One course led to another, and then I would discover the course that would revolutionize my classroom and instructional practice in guided reading and close reading. OneNote Class Notebook, a teacher's all-in-one. Yes, give it up. I discovered learning tools, and after realizing how they could support my kids, I got so hyped. So I decided to dedicate myself to the paperless process. With resources being so limited, I had to figure out how I would get devices into the hands of all of my students. So I wrote a grant for Donors Choose. I got 5 tablets funded, went to my principal, explained to him the vision that I had for my classroom. and the resources that I had obtained. He said, "Great idea, Graves, and I think I'll supply the rest of the devices so that you can go one-to-one." I was like, yes, and I was full of gratitude and excitement. That lasted all of 1 minute, because then I'd realized a new challenge was at hand. How and when am I going to teach my kids about Office 365, but most importantly, how to use Class Notebook? I found out that our district is fortunate enough to have access to a Microsoft Learning Consultant. That's him there. Yes, yes. This is Zia Hassan. Hey, Z. I know he's watching right now. I reached out to him, and I explained to him what I wanted to do with my class, and he was more than happy to come out and support. I selected the 5 students that I knew could learn it quickly and then teach their peers. Z came out maybe once or twice every 2 weeks until all the kids got it. And we rolled the tablets out 5 at a time, until everyone was till we were one-to-one. Now, this is a point in my story where I have to address all of the school leaders. If you're a school leader, could you raise your hand, please? Okay, good. Give it up for the school leaders, yes. But I got to tell you guys, what I noticed about Principal Branch is it wasn't a matter of just throwing technology into my classroom. He provided the flexibility in our instructional block, the much-needed encouragement to me and my kids, but most of all, and he provided the human resources. What do I mean by that? Well, there were times when even Principal Branch was in the classroom helping kids log on to Office, answering questions about Class Notebook, and most of all, acting like the IT person in troubleshooting and fixing technology that was not behaving. As a result of their constant tactical support, patience, and encouragement, some dynamic differentiation took place in my classroom. If you teach Common Core, you are aware of the challenges that close reading poses for struggling readers. Immersive Reader gives my students the support that they need by allowing the first read to be independent without being singled out and coming to my table so that I could read for them. I've noticed how they like to turn on the syllable function, which breaks down each word in the text. One of my struggling readers told me, "I like to use it because it helps me say the word on my own." This tells me that he's practicing his decoding skills. My students use dictation and audio to record their answers as a way of maximizing their class time. Check out what one of them told me. That's not the right slide. Sorry. Check out what one of them told me as I was checking through their notebooks and just stumbled on this audio. I didn't think I'd have enough time to finish typing, so I tried to talk the answer out by recording my answer. I thought it would be quicker because I knew I had other classwork to finish that I needed to finish so I could go outside for recess. For my proficient and high flyers, learning tools gives them the opportunity to think beyond the text, diving deeper into concepts, content, and central messages. And I can't even express the increase in academic conversation that you hear in my classroom. When you're listening to a 4th grade conversation about the Boston Tea Party and you hear a 4th grader say, "Where did you get that source information from? I don't know if I could trust that." On the inside, you're like, what? In addition to learning tools, Class Notebook has given me the capability to share a simple running record as I instruct in guided reading. While my student is reading on their device, I annotate the text on mine. And since OneNote allows us to share the work, we refresh our screens, have a quick debrief, and my student walks away from my guided reading table with a visual record of their miscues. Imagine how this has changed the conversation when a parent asks, how can I help my child at home read better? I provide them with a parent link to their child's notebook and remind them that with internet connection and a device, they have everything they need. Using audio has increased fluency in my classroom. My students record themselves reading, play it back, and listen to how they sound. This has caused many of them to reflect on their own reading practice. They are given as many opportunities as they need or want to re-record until they sound as smooth as silk. The look of pride on their faces when they realize they sound better reading, well, that's priceless. So if I could tell teachers anything, it would be dive in. Take time to explore the Microsoft Educator community. That's where I discovered the ideas and strategies that transformed my classroom. Dive in by reaching out to those who can support you. Dive in, work with what you have, and seek out what you can get. It wasn't easy, and there were many days when I wanted to throw in the towel. I said the old way is easier, it's more convenient, and it still works too. But when you look at that face and realize that the old way is not the best way for his future, you press forward and you dedicate yourself to the process. So my story ends like this. I am a reading teacher, but after all, destruction led to a discovery that ignited a dedication, and as a result, dynamic differentiation is what learning looks like in my classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Merlene. Thank you so much. Okay, so everyone is so inspired, and they all agree that having a supportive administrator is really, you're super lucky for that, right? So for the teachers, though, that have an administrator that's got maybe a much bigger school that they're worried about, or, you know, have other things that they're focusing on, what suggestions you have for the teacher who is kind of in on it on their own? Like, how could they get started using OneNote?
Well, definitely the Microsoft Educator community. I mean, all week here at ITSE, I've been seeing the words find your tribe, find your vibe, find your tribe, and I certainly found my tribe on the Microsoft Educator community.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Merlene.
Yeah.
One more round of applause for her and her fantastic kids. Thank you. Oh, my gosh. So for all of you that are watching online, she said the educator community. And so just because of these two stories that you heard with Assam, and you've heard actually 3 stories at this point, Assam's story of Teams and Merlene's story of OneNote, we have actually created a course that launched just today on the educator community. If you're watching online, it's linked in the resources tab under Create an Inclusive Classroom, and it's called Empower Every Student with an Inclusive Classroom. Not only does it include Assam's video, where you can actually see the video of Kabir and his students there. You can see Merlene's video again. You get access to all the other tools we have, like Translator, Office Lens, and even more, and how to get going in your own classroom. So I highly suggest that you check that out. Okay. Our next speaker coming up is one in which we are really lucky to have these incredible partnerships with other learning organizations. It's one thing I feel very blessed in this job that I have at Microsoft. And BBC Learning is one of those organizations. And BBC Learning has been able to bring our next speaker here to us today. She's not a teacher in the classical sense. She's actually the executive producer at Ocean X, and she has filmed and produced media in over 25 countries on all 7 continents. She has produced content for National Geographic, BBC, PBS, and more. After today, all of you sitting in the live audience, we're going to send you all the way down to the other end of the museum to check out her latest project, which is the Oceans, Our Blue Planet film. And for those of you watching online, be sure to go to the website and see where it's playing near you. It's absolutely worth it. So in her own unique way, she's bringing incredible learning experiences to us through film. Welcome, everyone, Jennifer Heil.
Great. It's so lovely to be here. And as Sonia said, I'm the executive producer of Ocean X Media. And that's part of a larger initiative called Ocean X. And our mission is to explore the ocean and bring it back to the world. As many of you probably know, the oceans cover 71% of the surface of our planet. What isn't as well known is that 95% of our oceans remain unexplored. And we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the seafloor of this planet, which is why at Ocean X we think it's critical to put time and resources towards ocean exploration, which we believe is the next frontier. We believe that storytelling and media are the best ways to bring back what we find, to share our discoveries with the world, and to inspire greater interests in our oceans. One of the best examples of how we have tried to fulfill our mission is through a 3D film that we co-produced with BBC Earth, sponsored by Microsoft, which you'll be seeing tonight. I'm so excited, called Oceans, Our Blue Planet. It's a companion film to the landmark TV series Blue Planet 2, for those of you familiar with that show. And like the series, we wanted to take our audience on a global journey to discover the largest and least explored wilderness on our planet. With the stories we tell in this film, you'll meet a tool-using fish. You will meet an octopus that can create its own body armor out of seashells to escape a shark. We want to forge a deeper human connection to the ocean and inspire the next generation to be stewards of our blue planet. And I really do think that's where filmmakers and educators have so much in common, that desire to incite curiosity and inspire. I'm here today to talk a bit about making the film, some of the adventures and mishaps that we had along the way. The film was produced over a 3-year period in 20 different locations. I was on nearly half of the shoots. I worked from the equator, places like the Galapagos, down to the poles, including a month in Antarctica. But before I go any further, I wanted to share a trailer of the film.
It is the largest and least explored place on Earth. Home to the most extreme, most exotic animals ever discovered. A vast, uncharted world critical to sustaining life on our planet. Continuous scientific advancements allow us to go further into the ocean depths than ever believed possible. Join an oceanic adventure into the depths, on a journey through vibrant coral cities and enchanted underwater forests. Come face to face with gentle giants and the smartest fish in the sea. Experience our blue planet in a breathtaking, immersive cinema event. Experience oceans.
So I mentioned earlier I work for Ocean X Media, and Ocean X has an extraordinary research vessel. You would have seen it in the trailer, and there's a photo of it right here. It's called the Aleutian, and it is what made much of this film happen. The Aleutian is equipped with 2 submarines, a helicopter, a scuba unit, and a science lab. Any combination of these is pretty rare, and all of them even more so, and it really allows us to take a 360 picture of the ocean. The subs, of course, were what were critical to allow us to explore the deep. And we absolutely love those submarines, but I tell you, we are just excited about the cameras that we have fixed to those submarines. There are 2 cameras. They are cinema grade. They are rated to 3,000 feet. We believe they are unique in the world. And the reason we are so excited about them is it means that it's not just the 3 people in the submarines that are seeing the extraordinary animals that we encounter and the habitats, but that we can bring all of you and your students along with us for the journey. I'd love to share some stories from one of our shoots, the longest and arguably hardest, 1 month in Antarctica. It took 9 months of planning to take a total of 42 people and thousands of pounds of equipment and cold weather gear to one of the most isolated and formidable environments in the world. There's no popping out for spare batteries if you forget them, so we really had to be on our game in the planning phase. Keeping all of that planning in mind, I think it's important to note that we really had no idea what we would find in the deep ocean in Antarctica. We didn't know if we'd find an empty Black Sea, a thriving ecosystem, or something in between. We knew there was a chance we might find scarce life and get minimal footage, which as a filmmaker is always very nerve-wracking. But we felt it was worth taking the risk to explore this uncharted part of our oceans and reach depths no one had previously attempted. So we're trying to chip away at that 95% unexplored that I mentioned earlier. To get there, the media and science crew flew to Ushuaia, which is at the bottom tip of Argentina, with 100 Pelican cases of gear. We got on board the Aleutian, and then it was a 3-day journey across the Drake's Passage, which is some of the roughest ocean in the world, to get to the northern tip of Antarctica. On the Aleutian, as I mentioned, we had the submarine, so we had camera crews for the submarine, for the helicopter. We had scuba teams for shallower work. We had land-based teams that were taking smaller boats to go ashore. And when we were down there, we made the decision to work at night in the 24-hour sunlight of the Antarctic summer because we realized that during the day, the light was so harsh that our aerial teams and our land-based teams, it was really hard to film. So in addition to working in a pretty tricky area, we turned our body clocks upside down. My work day suddenly started at 6 p.m. and finished around 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. And then we'd all slip on eye masks and try to sleep through a really piercing, bright day. A large part of my job on the shoot was to ensure that each of those camera teams that I mentioned were able to work harmoniously in an often dangerous and very dynamic environment. I've never been anywhere where conditions change so quickly, whether currents, visibility, the weather. We had an ice pilot who was there just to help us navigate all of these moving icebergs, some of them the size of Central Park. So we were just constantly having to adjust to whatever Antarctica was throwing at us. So my job was just sort of one of continuously reacting to what was happening and trying to problem solve throughout the day. But there were lighter moments too. We were down there over Christmas, so we missed Christmas with our families. But one night, we took boats to shore to a little island covered in penguins to sing Christmas carols. We apparently weren't very good. The penguins fled us. So we were much more interested in them than they were in us, which commonly happens with wildlife. As I mentioned before, we had no idea what we would find in the deep ocean. But when we finally reached our maximum depth, which is 3,000 feet or 1,000 meters, we found an ecosystem absolutely rich with life. And what that expedition taught us, and I've seen time and again, and what we are dearly hoping to communicate with this film to you and your students, is that there's still so much in our world left to discover. For students, we hope that it's critical that they grow up knowing that they too can be explorers, and best of all, there is still so much left to explore in our oceans. Now, while movies we hope are excellent for learning, we wanted to do even more to reach students. In partnership with BBC Learning, Microsoft has a new collection of teacher-written, inquiry-based lesson plans to complement the BBC Earth and OceanX film, Oceans Our Blue Planet. These interdisciplinary experiences engage students in answering 4 big questions while developing future-ready skills like writing code, building sensors, analyzing data, creating with 3D, and using mixed reality. I'd like to invite Jason Ewert, teacher from Rose Hill Middle School in Washington, to come out and demo one of these lessons that explores how sharks swim. Good luck. Do you need this?
Thank you, Jennifer. Just first off, I just want to say what an honor it is to be here. And I just want to thank Microsoft Education and also BBC Learning. We've had a great time collaborating with the BBC. And here, let me get logged in here really quick. And it has been just kind of a wild ride of lesson development over the course of the last 10 weeks. But we feel like we've developed some really fun lessons that I think kids are really going to resonate with students. So as Jennifer said, we have been working on developing lessons that kind of coincide with the BBC Oceans video. And the first lesson that we developed is related to sharks. And so to start off with, I have a few questions for you. Have you ever thought about where inventors get their ideas? Surprisingly, many new products were actually inspired by nature. For example, sharks have been credited with inspiring the design of the Mako Shark Corvette, antibacterial surfaces, and a drag-resistant coating that makes swimmers, sailboats, and airplanes move faster. Now, believe it or not, robots that mimic fish are actually being developed around the world as drones to go out and collect oceanic data and learn new things about the ocean. And so in this lesson plan, what we've done is we've put students in the authentic role of engineers learning about the science and the math behind fish movement, and then additionally developing a controlling system to maneuver a robotic drone fish in a virtual environment. So to start off with, we have students, I've got some props down here. We start off with having students make this 3D model that helps them understand how a robotic shark might move in the water. And so students are introduced with concepts related to flight. So over here on the Z-axis, we have yaw. Over here on the Y-axis, we have pitch. And then over here on the X-axis, we have roll. And these three positional movements, this three-axis rotational movements, are movements that enable an object to move around in three-dimensional space. So after students have gone through this analog component, they then move into a digital component. With all of our lessons that we develop, we like kids to have this hands-on, maker-based type project. As you can see right here, this is made from a wooden dowel, a spool, and some cardboard, and hot glued together, and then just some fun fish on there. But then we also like to get into some of the math behind it. And so over here we have this wonderful Excel worksheet that's been created by some of our data visualization experts that have serious experience with Excel. And we can start to look at some middle school standards-based math. So now we have some isometric transformations where we can look at a part of that shark and then start to visualize on the XY axis what happens to that fin as it encounters that pitch movement. So you can see what's happening with those points on that triangle, and students can start to look at what's happening in each of the four quadrants as that polygon starts to move on there. And then additionally, we've had just a great time with this last round of lessons as well, collaborating with some other groups in Microsoft Education, the Next team, and they have just developed some just beautiful resources for these lessons on PowerPoint. And so this PowerPoint right here is a great reference on how sharks move. And what we see is we have a little introduction here into the morphology of sharks and the different types of their fin types and the names of the fins. And so what students can then do is do a little research about the different fins on a shark and the movement that these fins help these sharks with. So we have the dorsal fin, we have the pectoral fins, and the caudal fin. And all of these help these sharks with this rotational movement. And then additionally, we also have some wonderful 3D models and visualizations. Now, PowerPoint has gotten even cooler. Now it does 3D learning, and we can have students go in and start to look at shark movement, pitch, yaw, and roll in 3 dimensions. I know, isn't that cool? And then, like, for the first time in any of our lessons that we've done so far, we've actually taken a little foray into Paint 3D. Here we go. Well, it looks like I'm going to talk about Paint 3D. So what students can actually do, and there's this wonderful, massive library of 3D models that are available to students, and they can take those models and they can bring them into Paint and then maneuver those around, manipulate them around, in a very CAD-like environment, and they can further reinforce their understanding of this three-dimensional movement. And so now that students have begun to look at the mathematics and the science and the movement behind shark movement and pitch, yaw, roll, they are going to be engaged in an authentic role of an engineer being challenged with the task of building a shark joystick. So I got another prop for you here. So in our lesson plans, all of our lessons, our goal is to democratize STEM education. So we're trying to, just do everything on the cheap. And so instead of having hundreds of dollars worth of robotics parts and these big box systems of STEM, we're trying to stick with the basics. And so as you can see right here, we've got this little shark drone that's kind of fun that the students build, and then out of a piece of cardboard. And then additionally, we have this joystick that is constructed of a square of cardboard, a wood dowel. We've got the shark connected with a washer and a magnet, and then copper tape that enable the shark to do these 3 different positional movements just by connecting the points on switches on this joystick. And then the students do some electronics work, and they wire up their joystick and send it into an Arduino microcontroller. And this is where things get super fun. So students now, as they build this, they have a testing environment. And so they can take this joystick and they can actually test the joystick and get live feedback from their joystick as a result of this connection to the Arduino. So this joystick, made out of basically stuff you pull out of the recycle bin, right, communicates with an Arduino, which then sends serial data into Excel, and then we have these wonderful visualizations that help students get some feedback on what they've built. So as you can see here, I've got some great yaw action going on here. And so now it looks like students can move to the left and to the right. They can control their drone in that direction. All right, let's do a little test on pitch. So you can see my 3D model there on the right. We can see that shark doing some great pitch action. And now let's try the roll. Oh, yeah, there we go. So now, yeah. And obviously, this is not the case all the time. We've kind of greased the tracks here for the presentation. But, students then, if their control system is not working, they then have to go through that iterative process of going back and checking each connection and determining what is going on with their joystick so that they can fix it and make it viable to work. And so the next component here is, now that we have tested the controller, now we need to actually look at a scenario where this shark is being controlled in an environment. And so before you take your, this robotic drone shark that you have spent thousands of dollars on, tens of thousands of dollars on, and just throw it into a marine environment and away you go, you want to test it in a virtual environment. And so we actually have, this is all Excel, folks, this is crazy. We actually have this virtual environment that students can now test their control system on. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to control, hopefully here, this shark with the joystick, and students are placed in this scenario where they are taking on the role of controlling this shark. So they may be going down in the Challenger deep submarine, deploy a drone, and then go out and try to find the nooks and crannies where the submarine couldn't get to and find some new life. And so now they're going to go on this biodiversity survey mission where they're going to go and collect data and see what types of species are out there. And then Excel will tabulate that down there below the virtual environment. So let's go ahead and start exploring. I'm going to start exploring and then do that. try and get out of the way before I hit something. And so you can see we've got some great yaw going there. And then maneuvering up with pitch. And if you look down at the bottom, you can see those different species being calculated. A little roll action there. Oh, yeah, there you go. And hey, look at that, I just ran into an octopus. And so down there it says, hey, it looks like you stopped to examine the octopus after seeing 25 other marine creatures. That octopus looked pretty cool. I'm going to go check it out a little bit more here. And so now that students have had this experience of going in and doing this maker-based project and doing some, engaging in some science and engineering practices while building and testing this, then teachers can set them free. These resources are, a wonderful way to build these foundational skills and then engage your students in the engineering design process. And so now, depending on what you're doing in your classroom or what your needs are as a teacher, you could really engage your students in engineering design by having them take this joystick and redesign it so that it is more comfortable or more usable for a unique user, or they could be asked to redesign the joystick to repurpose it for a different function. And so, just a fun way to engage in STEM, but at the same time, it really allows a viability in terms of access because the materials are so inexpensive. I mean, this joystick right here itself costs less than $1. This Arduino microcontroller is reusable, and so instead of spending hundreds of dollars to design these things with each group of students in your classroom, you can just really do this on the cheap, and students have a really rich mechanical engineering experience with this as they build this electrical engineering, data science, and they also get some experience in computer science as well with the programming of the Arduino and making sure that's ready to go with their experimentation. So, just that's about all I got for you here today. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
These lessons can be found on aka.ms/BBC Oceans, and we have a bunch of other lessons that are available as well. So go check them out and hack our projects, make them your own, take what you want, and leave what you don't.
Yeah, awesome. Nice job, Jason. That's cool. So Jason and a bunch of other teachers, Jason and a bunch of other teachers actually are the ones that build these STEM lessons along with our computer scientists and things like that. And you saw actually Valerie and Steve's kids do the wind turbine lesson out of the same one as well. So these are actually viable and doable in the classroom, and we really encourage you to go check them out. It's also at this time that I would like to share a new grant that's available to you right now. With the expansion of digital technology and mixed reality headsets, there's a new world of possibility to transform learning efficiency, retention, and student engagement. To help libraries gain access to this technology, we have a grant that's available. It's right down here, aka.ms/limitless libraries. It's open to libraries across the U.S., including libraries at middle schools and high schools. It will provide not only Windows mixed reality headsets and computers, but will provide technical training of staff and administration and other support. So for any of you out there that are librarians, work in a library in the U.S., give it go for it. Our first recipients will be announced at the end of our North American summer here. Also, before I bring out our last speaker, I want to remind you I really want to see you guys leave some videos of yourself. I want to hear your voice. Try out Flipgrid. It's fantastic. It's free for all teachers. Don't forget to get your badge for coming here today. I'd love to see all those badges on the Educator community. And so at this point, I would like to bring out our last speaker of the evening. Our last speaker came at the end of our broadcast in October, and he did his 10 Commandments of Teaching, and it was so inspirational we had to bring him back. So I'd like to bring out 4th grade teacher from Nellie K. Parker Elementary School in Hackensack, New Jersey, Tony Jackson, to perform his original piece, Speaking of Voice. Tony?
Everybody crushed it. No pressure, Tony. So speaking of voice, when I watch this recording back, I will hear my voice and I will cringe at the sound. It happens every time. If it's played in a room full of people, I hear it and instantly look to the ground. And I try to distract from the fact that I actually sound like that. Can anybody relate? Okay. So the reason that we cringe at the sound of our own voice recorded is that what we hear when we speak is vibration that's passed through our vocal folds, exits our mouth, and then travels around in our own skull as it enters our own ears distorted. So often we think that we know our voice, but we're wrong if we don't listen enough to our own voice recorded. I know. There's something seemingly odd about taking time to listen to your own voice. It's nice when others do it. Sometimes it's just nice to know that someone is willing to listen, that what we have to say matters enough that others will put their own voice aside to pay attention, which costs nothing and can mean everything. If the act of listening can lead to learning, then let's start listing the voices that we've heard the least and then listen until we've turned their pleas for acknowledgement into praise and encouragement to speak so loudly that we can't even hear ourselves think, because that's how we discover what's missing. So think of our mission. This is our mission: to teach is to reach inside of beings to find the passions that drive them. And if we're doing it right, we're invited along for the ride. If we're doing it wrong, then we're not really trying to guide them, we're just trying to drive. And we need to get out of the driver's seat if the phrase student-driven means anything. If anything, we are co-navigators. We're encouraging them to set out and explore. As they journey, they will find their voice. So resist the urge to just give them yours. Sometimes that's hard to do. Realize that if you just give them a voice, then they may sound just like you, and we already have one of those. So we need every young mind to stretch and open like sunflowers in full bloom. It takes time and care and acceptance that learning can't be confined to the walls of a classroom. Every child needs and deserves to be seen and be heard. Silence should be a choice. And sometimes all the silence we need lies in between the words. Also, this is not a time to be silent. No voice is worthless. Even if that voice is wordless, it isn't worth less than any other. Consider that if whispers or the width of an open eye can carry the weight of our wonder, it's not about pitch or timbre. If being heard can heal our hurt or evidence our existence, this is not about volume or tone. It's about how finding a voice can feel like finding a home, because walls can't define us, so home travels with us even when we're alone. And our voice is a vehicle. Often it's packed with the baggage that we've inherited. The moment that your students learn to leave that behind is a moment to cherish. Let them wander and wonder and ponder what they might say if you teach them that they are the difference between what is and what could be. Don't be afraid to say that patriarchy is a problem, that Black Lives Matter, that love is love is love, or that no human being's existence is criminal, no matter how obvious all of that should be. Because they need to hear you speak too, to know that you speak truth. It's not about replacing a tool, it's about changing a mindset. It's about helping them find and display a jewel that they haven't been able to mine yet. We need them thinking outside of the boxes that we've built. Teach them thoughts need not be confined to words, nor words to pages, and watch them go from talking about what needs to change to becoming the changes. When I watch this back, I will hear my voice and I will still cringe at the sound. It happens every time. But just knowing that people are hearing it leads me to feeling that if one thought touches one mind because of one voice at the right time, then it's worth it to teach and empower every student to raise their own. Thank you.
Tony, always amazing. And yeah. So I think I'm speechless. I'm constantly speechless after I hear Tony speak. So, and I do believe Anthony, we're going to bring back Anthony to close us out. Anthony.
Wow, thanks, Tony. I'm always inspired by hearing you talk. I'm in awe of the impact that you're making in your classroom, and thanks very much for sharing your poem with all of us here today. In addition to Tony, we've had some incredible educators sharing their vision and impact with all of you. I hope to hear some amazing comments and thanks to some of the educators, so join me in thanking some of them. Assam, thanks for the work that you've been doing with teams. You're an inspiration and really showcasing the power that teams can have to bring us all together through Office 365. Valerie and Steve, I love the work that you're doing with students using OneNote and Skype, bringing the power of we and the we movement to your classrooms and students. Awesome to see. And making that live with Minecraft and Hacking STEM to drive literacy, to actually bring project-based learning into the classroom is awesome. Merlene, thanks for the work that you're doing with learning tools to drive literacy. Now, I know we've got amazing OneNote Avengers using learning tools every single day. Now, we've been working and listening to your feedback to bring learning tools to Edge and to Word, to make it a core part of the platform, to bring inclusivity, to drive literacy in the classroom. Thanks for very much being OneNote Avengers, and I hope to see all those OneNote Avengers out there using learning tools in their classroom. And lastly, Jason, thanks for demoing how to swim with sharks. I'm excited about the work that we're doing with the ocean, certainly with the aquatic update to Minecraft, Education Edition, the work that we're doing in partnership with BBC to bring the insight of the oceans and the great part of the aquatic realm to students in classrooms around the world. So thanks very much for amazing educators. Thanks very much for joining us. I hope everyone in the comments got a lot of value out of today's sessions, and make sure to get access to the links below to see how you can use some of the tools and techniques in your own classroom. Now, the best way to do this is to connect with us through the Microsoft Educator community. This is a great community of amazing resources. You can find lesson plans, download courses and materials that you can use in your classroom, get connected to other educators. If you're not a member of the Educator community, what are you doing? Make sure you go to the Microsoft Educator community, get a profile, start connecting, start learning, start building badges, and join our amazing community of Microsoft innovative educators from around the world. Now, I'm excited to give a preview to our next Hack the Classroom, which will happen in October. We'll get your feedback, what you want to hear, what you want to learn about. Tell us in the comments so we can build the amazing session building off today's great event. And I'm also looking forward to having all of you join us for our Skype-a-thon, which will be November 6th and 7th. This is an amazing opportunity. Start getting thinking and plans now in your classroom to join us for what's going to be an incredible Skype-a-thon. So till when we next meet in October for next Hack the Classroom, take care. Thanks for doing amazing things. Thanks for being awesomes. You inspire us all every single day to do more. Thanks for the great work that you're doing. And thanks your students as well for the impact that they have on making the things that you do come alive. See you soon.